Coming at you from the Skyhammer Studios here on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. This is the Donzo and Deez Show.
You have insanity in my earpiece.
I'm Donzo.
I'm Deez.
And we're doing a little bit different of a show this week for you. Of course, on October 6th, Israel's a day off from us. We all know this at this point. They were attacked by Hamas from the Gaza Strip.
I did not know Israel was a day before us.
They're a day off, yeah. So what would have been like a Sunday anyway. So October 6th is when this happened, Israel time. For those of you that aren't in the loop, and I'm sure everybody that's listening is in the loop, but just to kind of wrap this up, Hamas did about 1,000-person death squad on Israel, and it took Israel by surprise. Now, there's a lot of people out there speculating as to how Israel, which is has one of the most technologically advanced security forces in the world, let this go, and we're going to talk about that. A lot of people are comparing this to Ukraine, what's going on with Israel, because they are a staunch ally of ours, and we're going to talk about that as well. We're also going to talk about all of the fronts that the United States is being spread out on in this war, because it is a war, and it's going to go global. We're going to talk about why this has happened. We're going to talk about why it's BS that people are calling out Israel for committing war crimes. We're going to encapsulate all this on this show. Now, I know it's usually a pretty jovial deal. We try to keep it that way, but this week really got to me. This reminded me a lot of 9/11. And 9/11 for our country was a very, very, very piss-poor moment in time. Okay? And this is a very, very, very bad moment in time for Israel. And we're going to see a lot of things happen in the coming weeks. This is very, very serious what's going on right now for a lot of reasons. Now, a lot of this, on its face, may look like one thing, but it's actually a completely opposite deal happening. Hamas, extremist Muslims, Islam, we look at that and we get really, really angry at them. But it's not just that. They're being used. Now, these people want to hurt us, okay? Hamas, Hezbollah, they want to kill us. Any infidel, any non-believer they want to kill. Do not get me wrong on this, okay? They want to exterminate us off the face of the damn planet. This is the only religion, and I'm not saying all of them, okay? I'm not saying all of them, but this is the only religion that indoctrinates its followers to die for a cause like this. Deez, I got a question. This is going to sound a little little comical, but when's the last time you saw a Presbyterian suicide bomber?
None that I can
recall.
No,
how about a Jewish suicide bomber? And this is going back to Dennis Leary, okay?
At the very least, not in the name of said religion.
Not in the name of said religion.
I mean, there have been mass murderers of all religion, but not necessarily in the name of.
And that's exactly something I want to clear up right now before we get too deep into this. And the reason we didn't have a cold open on this show, ladies and gentlemen, is I told Deez I just don't feel that we can do a cold open in a comical manner and then shift into this. I just didn't feel we could do it. This is very, very, very serious. Now, we talked about religion. Deez, you brought up a good point. A point I hear a lot of people bring up. And they go into this, well, all these wars and all these people died in the name of religion and the Crusades and all this other stuff. Yeah, I get it. You know what the only difference is between the Jews, the Christians, and Islam? What separates the Jews and the Christians from Islam? The Jews and the Christians got to this point of enlightenment. Okay, they came out of the Dark Ages and they said, well, it's not worth killing people over. They just disagree with our religion. Islam has so far not been able to do that. Okay? They have not been able to do that. Did you see the pictures of the babies they beheaded?
I saw some, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I want to remind you of something, and this is going to get off on a rant here in this first segment. They didn't target Israel's military. They didn't target their air defense bases. They targeted small villages with innocent people while they were asleep at 6:30 in the morning.
Music festival
Just went in and started mowing them down. And the ones they didn't mow down, they saved them for later. They raped them, they killed them, they burnt them. They chopped off babies' heads, killed women and children and elderly people. They paraglided in. They cut holes in the fencing perimeter and drove trucks in. You know, when you're a kid, and we can all think back to being kids, we're afraid of monsters. We're afraid of something in our closet coming out to get us. And then you grow up and you think monsters are just make-believe. Well, I got news for you. They're not. They're not. And any damn American right now alive should be thinking back to how we felt on 9/11. 9/11, we're not going to count the first responders that have died since this happened. We're just going to say it was about 2,000 people in the World Trade Centers on that day. You count the World Trade Centers, you count the Pentagon. The flight United 93 that crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. It was about 2,000 people, right, Deez?
Mm-hmm.
Out of 360 some odd million people.
I mean, you might as well count the first responders because their
deaths from
cancer are a direct result.
I agree, but I don't have the numbers on hand.
I got you.
Let's just say 2,000 people, roughly. Okay, I don't mean to minimize it. I don't mean
I get what you're saying.
I'm not doing that, and I may be a little off on the 2,000, but it was around 2,000 out of 360 million some odd people. Okay. Israel has lost, right now I think the count's up to 1,200 people out of 9 million. We have Americans, I think it's up to 25 Americans have been killed so far. American citizens that were there. And I want to say it's getting close to 200 hostages they have at this point. Hamas has them. Hamas was going in. There's multiple stories about this. I'll give you an example of one. Let me see how much time I got, because I don't want to cheapen this or minimize it. One of the Hamas death squads went in and took this lady's cell phone and went on her Facebook and live streamed her murder and put it on her Facebook page. And her family in America saw it. That's how they found out their grandmother was murdered. They watched it being done. They had these idiots out there. Idiots. Idiots is so, we're idiots. These people are idiots. They're subhuman. They're less than animals. With garden hose, decapitating people. This was a coordinated effort, okay, by Iran and by Russia, and largely in part by China, and we're going to get into that. Now, I know this is a very somber moment on the show. This is probably the most somber we've ever been. But the sticks is going to literally hit the fan here soon. Deez, we're going to talk about this as well. Did you hear that the leader of Hamas has called for a global jihad tomorrow? We pre-taped this on Thursday, so I don't know what's going to happen. I wish we didn't have to do it like this, but we do.
We may not be on the air.
We may not be on the air. Has called for a global jihad on October 13th. Global jihad rising up. Have you heard about this?
I saw the headline where it just said protest, but we already know what that means.
We're going to get into that in the next segment. We're going to get into more specifics and details about this. And I'm not telling people they need to be scared, but they need to be vigilant. This is not going to end. Take your Christianity and your Judaism and shut your mind off to that. Because you can't figure this out. You have to get in the right mindset. These people want to die. They are indoctrinated. They are brainwashed that dying is the best thing in the world they can do. They're not afraid of you. You take a Christian or you take an agnostic, or Deez, you're an atheist, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, an atheist. You're not going to go out there and say, I'm going to go die for no reason, are you?
No.
No, these people will. They absolutely will. That's the difference. They so believe in this cause. Something else we're going to get into, BLM. BLM's come out and supported Hamas. You have all these pro-Palestinian and pro-Hamas protests going on. You have Bernie Sanders, who's a Jew, who's Jewish, okay, coming out and talking about Israeli war crimes. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, I've seen there's been a lot of support.
Well, I'm going to tell you in the coming segments what these Israeli war crimes are. Now, they say just because one country or one faction commits a war crime, that doesn't give this country...
No,
that's
look,
completely
I'm sure
not the deal going
Israel, there are numerous allegations and things of that nature, but regardless of what they have or haven't done or what kind of government they run, the simple fact is that the kind of actions that Hamas is doing is not justifiable.
Absolutely not. And we've got a lot of stuff to cover here. I wanted to air my grievances out. I wanted everybody to know how I feel about this situation right now, and I did that. Okay?
Now, dick jokes.
Now,
just kidding.
Yeah, just kidding. We like to get risque jokes and stupid topics in whenever we can, and we will later on in the show. But this is very, very big right now, and I've said this in the beginning. I probably sound like Donald Trump. This is huge. This is bigly. It is. So, and we're going to be checking for breaking news while we're doing this to keep up on it as best we can, folks. We're going to do whatever we can.
We say breaking news, but keep in mind that it's not going to matter because this is Thursday, and you folks are going to hear this on Saturday.
Oh, Deez, ye of little faith.
So, if we're not here Saturday, we're here.
So, get this out of the way right now. I've heard a lot of people talking about us being the world police, which, Deez, you and I have discussed this ad nauseum. We don't want to be the world police anymore. Now, being conservatives, I'm going to lump you in there. I mean, I know you're kind of more center-right, but yeah, you're conservative, okay? I've known you long enough. You've come out with your views.
I lean much further that way, yes.
Let's just, for simplicity's sake, just call you conservative. You are. I can't. I don't care. I don't care. No, you shudder, but you are. I didn't call you a Republican, okay?
Gotcha.
No, the R word does not get thrown about between the two of us because I don't think either one of us considers ourselves a Republican. Do you? I know I don't consider myself one. I mean, I guess I lump into that
sure
group.
Don't. I mean,
you know, when you do the ballot thing, it's an R, but no, conservative. All right, we have conservative values. Not all the way across the board, not every single thing, but for the most part, I mean, we're conservative.
In comparison to what is considered liberal these days, then yes.
Well, and that's the question.
I mean?
Who really pushed the bar here, Deez? We didn't really change.
No, I agree.
We didn't change.
I mean, if it was slight, whereas the left has gone way off kilter.
Exactly. They've lost their damn minds. And that's something I want to get into with this BLM thing as well. We've got so much to cover. So much. This is not going to be your typical El Donzo and Deez broadcast, okay? It's just not. We're going to get into the weeds, and we're going to get some of this stuff out there in the open. So a lot of people compare our allegiance to Israel like Ukraine. Well, you're wasting money over there. Well, who gives a damn what happens in the Middle East? I'm going to tell you the difference between Israel and Ukraine. Israel is, let's talk about Hawaii, okay? Hawaii's out in the Pacific Ocean. It's a little chunk of land, but it's our state, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's statehood. Israel, if they were in Western Europe, they'd be part of NATO. They're not. Japan's not part of NATO. South Korea's not part of NATO. Taiwan is not part of NATO. Israel is the only other country on the face of the planet that is almost literally an extension of the United States. It is like our little brother out there. Our little brother in a sea of retarded stupidness and extremism and war that's economically beneficial to us, security-wise is beneficial to us. They're very smart. They're a very rich country. They bring in a lot of money. They export a lot of things. They're very, very intelligent. And they've been by our side for almost 80 years. Okay? Of course, Israel was started back in 1948. The difference between Israel and Ukraine is Israel is good for us. It's good for the American citizens. It's good for the country. We have a great rapport with them. There's things that Israel lets us know that we can't figure out. And there's things that we let Israel know that they didn't know about. It's really, really, really almost magical, the relationship we have with Israel. They are our closest ally. We need to take care of them. Now, for those people comparing aid, okay, aid, well, I'm lumping that money into one thing called aid. Military support, financial support, research, development. Now, remember, Ukraine doesn't benefit anybody in the United States except politicians. Ukraine is just a country for laundering money.
I was going to say it's benefiting somebody.
It's benefiting somebody. It isn't you and it isn't me. Israel's benefiting us every day. These people care. Before the IDF launches a missile into Gaza, okay, which we're going to talk about the counterattack too that's going on, or is about to go on. It's been going on, but they're talking about going in ground forces. Before they launch a counterattack, before they launch missiles, they give all the civilians time to get out of there. They alert them to it.
Yeah, they already dropped with a flyover a bunch of flyers basically saying, find shelter because it's coming. Like, this is your warning. Which is going to lead us into this whole war crimes BS. All right? Because that's what it is. It's BS and it's propaganda. We've also got a story coming at you from Rolling Stone magazine that makes my stomach churn every time I read it. And it's going to be about, right-wing conspiracies. Yeah. Anyway, Ukraine. I'm gonna. Deez, are you ready to have your mind blown? Sure.
Okay. Ukraine does nothing for us as citizens. Israel does a whole lot for us. They are our counterparts in the world. How much money are we approaching that we have given Ukraine in nearly 2 years? We've talked about this. I don't know if you remember it or not.
I gotta think we're in the ballpark of, what, 175?
We could be getting close. I was going to say close to 150.
Yeah.
Do you know why it's kind of hard to gauge? Because the mainstream media skews the numbers.
Right.
In 2022 alone, we give them $80 billion.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you count the aid packages, we're around $150 billion. In 2 years for Ukraine, who could at any moment, any minute, Deez, fold and be taken over by Russia.
Not even taken over. Basically, it's a chunk of land near Russia. Like, it's not like Russia doesn't even want the whole country. They just want the one region.
They wanted the eastern region, and they wanted to keep Crimea. Of course, that was going to happen. They're going to sign a peace deal, and then Boris Johnson, the moron that he is, and then, of course, the Biden administration put a halt to that. So now we're in, potentially World War III here. But $150 billion in 2 years, man, that's a lot, isn't it?
You think?
And for what? What are we getting out of this? We're going broke. Militarily, we're crippled. We're not getting a lot out of that, are we? Doesn't seem like a very smart country because they're being destroyed. They're approaching $150 billion in damages to their country right now. And we've given them $150 billion for what? A war of attrition? I got news for everybody. This isn't a war of attrition against Ukraine between Ukraine and Russia. It's a war of attrition between Russia and us. We're going to get into that in the later segments. Now, I want you to tell me, since 1949, how much do you think we've given in aid to our closest allies since 1949, Deez? Just ballpark me.
Okay, well, obviously it's very, very low. So,
well, don't go there. I mean, I'm just telling you. Take a guess. Think about the metrics.
Well, they haven't really been involved in too many wars.
Well, neither has Ukraine until now.
Well, yeah,
but go ahead.
250 million.
250 million since 1949?
Sure.
Well, you kind of threw me off there. $133 billion since 1949.
Which is still much better average numbers.
$133 billion since 1949 until present day we've given Israel. And we've given Ukraine nearly $150 billion.
Probably more.
Probably more. No. That's just in 2 years. That's just what we can figure out in 2 years.
Yeah.
That's not counting all the other aid we've given them. Doesn't that seem a little skewed to you? And Ukraine can stand on their own 2 feet right now. Ukraine has nuclear weapons. Now, Iran, we're running out of a little time here in this segment. Iran backed Hamas. And I don't care what that idiot corpse in charge says. Well, there's no direct evidence. There was no direct evidence that you were profiteering off your son's business deals in Ukraine and China. No direct evidence that Iran backed Hamas. There's plenty of direct evidence that Iran
we just
backed.
gave $6 billion to
We released
recently.
$6 billion in funds to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to tell you something about this. Let me see how much time I got here. I got time. This has been going on for a while. The next thing we're going to talk about is how this happened to Israel, who has their sticks so wired tight, they have the Iron Dome that nobody can get a missile into. How did this happen? We're going to talk about that. But this has been planned, and this has been admitted to for 2 years in the making. They've been planning this 2 years in the making. What else has been going on for about 2 years? The Ukraine war, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the past 2.5 years, 3 years, Joe Biden's been in office, hasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
That we're ripe for the picking right now. Now, how Israel did this, I got a lot of people speculating on this. And, well, I think Benjamin Netanyahu, because he was facing fraud charges and bribery charges, he didn't let this happen. No, he formed a unity government with his opposition party, who would not have gone for this had they believed that he let this happen. They got complacent. Not only did they get complacent, but Hamas did not use any electronic media or communication whatsoever in this. And we're doing a pretty deep dive into what's been going on in Israel right now. In the last segment, before the commercial break, we were talking about how in the hell this happened. How did Israel allow this to happen? Now, we know Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, is being charged with fraud and bribery. And most people go, it's really bad. Well, look at Donald Trump in this country, right, Deez?
Or Joe Biden.
Or Joe Biden, for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
So what's been going on in Israel is he's been pushing through some changes to give different branches more power, explicitly taken away from the judiciary branch, which has been hotly debated why he's doing this. His thing is it's going to give people more freedom. It's going to give people a better shot at justice. And then, of course, his detractors say it's to get him off the hook. Either way around it, people have been saying that he has allowed this to happen. They knew it was going to happen. There's rumors that Egypt told him this was going to happen and they blew it off. And I'm going to tell you something. There's terrorist threats every day. Okay? Every day there's something going on. There's something hot. Let's go back to 9/11, where people claim that the federal government knew this was going to happen. There's all this chatter. There's chatter every day. Now, look, if it comes out in a month from now that Bibi Netanyahu let this happen, I'll change my tone. I will absolutely change my tone on this. I'll accept any evidence that anybody gives me. But I'm going to tell you right now, the way this went down was actually very, very intelligently. They were backed by Iran. They were absolutely backed by Iran, but they did it in a way they could not be traced. They worked in cells. Do you know how cells work, Deez?
More or less, yeah.
Okay, so you've got 10 people,
mm-hmm.
and person from cell A, there's a group of 10 people in cell A. Only one of those people from cell A communicates with one person in cell B.
It's like the telephone game.
Telephone game, but it's a lot different. That keeps information from getting out. It keeps it from being leaked. Since they do not communicate electronically, this is why it took them 2 years to pull this off. One person can't leak. They can't be infiltrated. They chose 6:30 in the morning to kick this thing off, I guess, when they were doing, or 6:30 in the evening to do the shift change for the military. There was people sleeping at the time. They planned this out. They sat, they watched, they planned it. Okay? Now, can you say Israel dropped the ball on this? Maybe they did. Like I said, maybe they got complacent. Maybe they got lazy. That's very possible, and I don't doubt it one bit. This is a country that's constantly at war.
I mean, if they were that disciplined in their secrecy and movements and things like that, it's hard to sit there and point fingers and say that, they dropped the ball. I mean,
it is, but you had a lot of IDF soldiers who heard the gunfire, and they went into these little towns and did this. They didn't go right in the middle of Tel Aviv and do this. They went to these little towns on the border. They went to the music festival and just started shooting people up. Okay, and Iran has not copped to this yet. Of course, Iran's back there, oh, la, 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 applauding, but they didn't actually cop to it yet. So they go in, they do this. They pick the right time. They've been planning this for 2 years. Now, how do we catch terrorists now in the United States, Deez?
We don't. We let them come through the southern border.
Okay, really good answer, because we're going to talk about that as well. Really good answer there. I like that. That was nice. But let's put it this way. How do they catch people that were at the January 6th protest?
Electronics. Cameras, internet.
That's how everything's
postings,
done now.
Facebook, all that stuff.
When you go back to barbaric ways, you cheat technology out of it. They can't find you. And that's, in my opinion, what has happened so far with the research I've done.
I mean, same thing could be said for 9/11. There was electronic communication back then, but nowhere near on the scale that it is today.
No, there was little radio chatter being picked up. I mean, there was the internet back then.
Yeah, but not. Again,
but it was in its infancy.
Nothing like it is now.
It was in its infancy. We always rely on, maybe that's the problem with modern technology. Maybe that's the problem with us. Maybe that's the problem with Israel.
It wasn't regulated. It wasn't like,
exactly.
There wasn't a whole division in Washington, D.C. with thousands and thousands of people that only job was to monitor the internet.
But think about this. We bank on everybody's going to be on the internet. Everybody's going to be using their damn phone. I've said this before. If I was going to commit a murder, which I'm not going to, the first thing I would do...
I'm not going to make that commitment.
No, yeah, I make that. Well, we don't know what's going to happen in the coming days.
Yeah.
But if you're going to commit a crime, the first thing you should do is take your cell phone, go to the nearest truck stop, and duct tape it to the underside of a flatbed trailer, and leave your cell phone behind, because they will find you by the cell phone.
Yeah.
They will find you by the internet spots you've been surfing. Get a VPN.
Even if the phone is not powered on.
Exactly. They can still track you. So what Hamas did was they said, hey, we're not doing that. We're going to make this happen. And they pulled off probably, in my opinion, one of the worst terrorist attacks easily since 9/11. And if you look at per capita, how many residents or how many citizens Israel has, which is 9 million, as opposed to our, like I said, 360-some million, we lost 2,000, they've lost over 1,000. Per capita, it's probably the worst. They hang glided in there. They pulled out all the stops.
Really?
Yeah, they were hang gliding in there.
Oh, wow.
Or paragliding, whatever. I mean, they were coming in. I mean, not like
that's some Red Dawn stuff there.
Yeah, that is some Red Dawn stuff. Now, there was also one report, and this goes to show you just how chicken sticks they can be. I guess one of these Israeli citizens, when they were busting through his door, and they found slaughtered Israelis in their bomb shelters. They found them in the kitchen. They slaughtered the parents in front of the kids and then cut the kids' heads off and raped them and burned their bodies and all this really nice stuff. But I guess one guy actually got his gun out as they were coming in and pointed the gun at him, and they retreated. Now, anybody can say terrorists are cowards. We say, whoa, you went in there and killed somebody, you're a coward. That's easy to say. But it's stories like that really make you think about it now, isn't it? Now, you said something earlier, and I'm jumping out of alignment here, because I kind of had my points, kind of scheduled out. But I really like what you brought up when I asked about... what was it I asked you? You said the southern border?
How do we catch terrorists?
How do we catch terrorists? It's not at the southern border.
I said we don't, because they just walk across the southern border.
So for the past couple of years under the Biden administration, we have had an open border. If anybody wants to text me or call me or get on Facebook and argue with me about this, I will cut you down. We've had an open border, and we've debated that before. We haven't even debated it. We agree on it.
There's nothing to debate.
We're the only country in the world that has a border. Anybody can just come the hell across it. We can't. Anyway, that's another discussion. How many terrorists this year have they caught coming across the southern border? 151. 151 that they've caught, that they've nabbed. Okay? Now they got people coming over from Sudan. They got them coming over from Lebanon, which, by the way, Lebanon and the Iranian Hezbollah are also launching rockets into Israel, which has kicked off this worldwide thing. They caught Hamas people, ISIS. ISIS is Hamas. They found, when they killed a bunch of these Hamas guys in one of these villages, they found an ISIS flag. 1.7 million gotaways, Deez. 1.7 million people evaded capture at the border. Think about that.
Are you talking total border crossings?
No. That evaded. Not people that came across the border. People that didn't get nabbed.
Oh, I
by
but that could be
CBP.
from any
Absolutely.
nationality.
Absolutely,
okay.
it could. Absolutely, it could. But I'm gonna run this by you real quick. I want to see how much time I got to go into this. Not a whole lot.
Law of averages says that of those 1.7 million, that there were at the very least a handful of people in these cells.
I bet there's probably more than that when you go back 3 years. Remember, that's just this year alone, Deez.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? And there's been a lot of Muslims from these countries come through that didn't have any terrorist ties. And I know I'm picking on the Muslims, but I'm going to tell you something right now. Muslims is a hot topic right now,
There's
folks.
probably people that have been here for a decade that, they just sit and wait.
And wait. Exactly. They do. So can you really say at this point, if you look what happened to Israel, they had one of the tightest borders in the world, and they wait and bought their time and they infiltrated it. They went right over it. They picked the right time. Can you really sit back and say that's not happening here, that couldn't happen? We're running out of time on this
I'd say
segment.
there's zero chance of that
not
being the
happening.
case. Yeah. Zero.
And my oh my, we were talking about the border situation on the last segment, weren't we now, Deez?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about how all these people are coming across the border, and let's put it this way. This is a Fox News headline. Okay, this is from a couple days ago. Thousands of special interest aliens from Middle East countries stopped at southern border since 2021. Do you know what special interest aliens is?
No.
They are people from countries identified by our government as having conditions that promote or protect terrorism or potentially pose some sort of national security threat to the United States of America. Thousands. Literally thousands. That's
surprised.
not counting the gotaways. That's not counting the 1.5 to 1.7 million gotaways that we've had.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is where your propaganda comes into play. Rolling Stone magazine. Remember they put Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, who was the Boston Marathon bomber, on the cover, made him look all glamorous and sticks like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And people are like, well, I know what the big deal is. No, they're glorifying him. Maybe they said they weren't, but it just looks stupid. He made him look like a rock star. So the Rolling Stone magazine. This is a headline, and then we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this, and I'm going to tell you exactly why these people are the dumbest people to walk the face of the planet. Because I really believe that they're buying off on their BS at this point. I really believe the stuff they're peddling, they're starting to believe it. You'd have to be absolutely ignorant to believe this, but I believe they're doing it. Okay, this is the headline. Rolling Stone magazine, the lead rag for hippies and ignorance. This is the headline. Trump and MAGA allies push conspiracy theory about Hamas crossing southern border. This gets stupid. Folks, you're going to be dumber for listening to me read this to you. Okay, but you got to stave it off. This is absolutely dumb as sticks, but I'm going to read it to you. Starts out, responding to an eruption of deadly violence between Hamas militants and Israeli defense forces that threatens to claim many more lives in the days ahead, Donald Trump and far-right allies are using the crisis to push a familiar anti-immigration narrative back home. According to MAGA World, Hamas won't stop at launching a surprise attack on Israel from Gaza. They've also infiltrated the U.S. via the Mexican border. So what they're saying, okay, is that, A, Hamas are militants, not terrorists. Now, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation was ordered, okay, the journalists there were ordered not to call them terrorists. Did you know this? This is an order from the top. No matter if you're even reading an excerpt from a government official, are you to call them terrorists? What else are they, Deez?
Hell if I know.
So, at this point in time, according to Rolling Stone and these rags, they get out to a lot of people. A lot of people read this garbage. According to them, we're conspiracy theorists. Now, we just told you how many people are coming across the border, and in this, Miles Klee wrote this, and in it he also states, like, well, how can Hamas get out of the Gaza Strip? The Gaza Strip's landlocked. Oh, yeah, Gaza Strip's a prison. Yeah, it's like Escape from New York over there, you idiot. So, first of all, yes, people can get out of the Gaza Strip, believe it or not. That's possible to do. Yeah, you can leave the Gaza Strip. You can go by boat. You can cross through land. You can go down the street. Yeah, you can get out of the Gaza Strip, you moron. But Hamas isn't a village of people. That's Gaza Strip. That's Palestine. Hamas is extremist Muslims, just like ISIS. So I can stop eating pork right now and call myself Hamas. Well, how could they get across the border? They can't get out of... That's the dumbest thing in the world. Anyway, I have something for you. Conspiracy theorists. Hamas leader and founding member Khaled Mashal calls for global Muslim uprising, asking for Muslims' blood and souls to be sacrificed for Palestine this upcoming Friday of Al-Aqsa flood. I'm going to read this. This is going to be a little bit long-winded, but you guys got to hear this, because this is important. This kind of revolves around what we've been saying. We have so many more things to go through. But Khalid Mashal, the leader and founding member of Hamas, gave a speech the other day asking Muslims all around the world to do the following. A, show anger, especially next Friday, in Muslim countries and also among Muslim diaspora around the world. He called it the Friday of Al-Aqsa flood. He said this will send a message of rage to Zionists and to America. He also asked for financial help for all Muslims around the world to help with their money. He called it financial jihad. He asked Muslims to give to the fighters of Gaza in order to compensate them for the destruction. He asked political pressure from Muslim leaders and Muslim nations to stop Israel's military invasion of Gaza. He also said the most important thing. He asked all Muslims around the world to carry jihad by their souls, to fight and be martyrs for Al-Aqsa. He wants Muslims to fight against the Jews, starting with Muslims who live in the countries surrounding Israel, which is Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Egypt, to go to the borders and try to enter, each by his own means. He said this is the time for jihad to be applied on the ground rather than just in theory. He asked the mujahideen to go into long caravans to spill their blood on the land of Palestine. What this guy has just called for, ladies and gentlemen, is global jihad. This is something that should be taken serious. So when you see people like the Rolling Stone magazine and these other rags get on there and say, this is a nothing burger, these are conspiracy theories.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but
go ahead.
You really forgot probably the most important line of his speech, which was the final line, which are, funds are important, but today we are asking for your blood and souls.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Those were the final words. They're asking them to sacrifice themselves for Palestine. That's what he's asking Muslims to do across the entire globe. And you got stuff like Rolling Stone says we're nuts for this. Now, there's so many pro-Palestinian supporters going. BLM has come out and supported Hamas. You have these pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas protests going on around the world. Rashida Tlaib has a Palestinian flag outside of her office. This is something very big going on here, and in the next segment, we're going to tell you exactly why it's happening now and exactly why this global jihad is being kicked off at this moment in time in these places when we return here on the El Donzo and Deez Show on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal.